So I have some thoughts around corporations and pride that I've been meaning to get off my chest, because we've been seeing now a couple of big companies get in hot water around pride. And in the past, companies and major corporations have gotten flack because they show up at June, slap a rainbow on their logo, and then they're on their way. And they want the advertising space of a float in a pride parade or whatever it may be. And the whole central question of that past criticism is, are you actually a company or using this in any way to be of allyship? Or are you just showing up when it's easy because this is just a way to make money, right? And the criticism was that this was just a way to make money, that there was nothing deeper here. Well, now we are in a different political moment where the LGBT community, especially the trans community, is very much at risk and very much targeted in a campaign of political violence. And now that solidarity, actual solidarity, visibility, and support is more important now than ever. So now we take a look and examine some of those behaviors. And what are we seeing? And what we're seeing is that some of the big multi-billion-dollar corporations, brands, organizations that were chomping at the bit just a year ago or 2 years ago to have their float in pride and slap a rainbow on their logo and run a commercial to sell whatever they want to sell, are now at the slightest hint of extreme right-wing or extreme white supremacist campaigns are folding. They're folding. We're seeing it with Target. We're seeing it with other places. And that, I think it's very important and very clear. It's answering the question that some people have. And if you are an organization that, or a person that only wants to show up when it's easy, when it's trendy, and doesn't want to show up when it matters and when there are stakes, then you're not an ally. You're not. And I want to be clear that criticisms around, profit motives and the complicated relationships and, this like Wall Street kind of capitalist critiques, all of those things are understandable. They stand. But there are also histories of organizations, of companies that were part of taking kind of radical stands throughout history to stand with marginalized communities. If you want to know, for example, why Hennessy is so popular in urban communities, Black communities, communities of color, it is because Hennessy actually has a political history of allyship. A lot of people may not know that. And so I was a bartender, right? Absolute Vodka also has that similar history. And so you can show up when it matters. Don't show up next year or 2 years from now if you're not showing up now. And the reason that that's important is because the goal of these extremist campaigns and these white supremacist campaigns is to push people back into the closet, back into the shadows, and to make all sorts of people invisible in society. Because visibility very often is a form of legitimacy. And if they only want a very specific, narrow set of people to be quote unquote visible or to be legitimate, what you do is that you scare visibility of any other community that you don't want to exist, pretty much, out of large platforms. That not only applies for LGBT communities, but they know that we know they won't stop. They won't stop with interracial couples. They won't stop with single women. They won't stop with moms. They will not stop. So I also sometimes hear folks, including on my side of the aisle, dismiss issues like these as a quote unquote culture war or a distraction. Now, multiple things can be true at the same time. First of all, does a very powerful and wealthy elite class want to keep everyday people fighting each other in order to prevent us from coming together to win real economic and material gains? and change? Yes. In my view, yes, absolutely. However, the basic rights of our fellow Americans should not be up for debate. And the more that we allow classes of people to have their rights debated and eroded away, the further away we get from those material and economic gains. Because what wins is solidarity, is by not debating it. Because in order for us as just people to come together and amass the enormous amount of political, social, and economic power to challenge some of these existing norms of being extorted over your rent and charged way too much money for your medicine and not being paid a minimum, a living wage, and having to change that. In order to accomplish that, you need everybody. You need everybody. It's going to take all of us. And we cannot afford to leave anybody behind. It requires real solidarity, not just tolerance, but solidarity. That means actively going to bat for each other. And the more we do that, the more we build that, which we are building it, the better off we stand to win a better world. Period.